It is April 5th, 2022, and welcome to Shaw Planet. We have just finished that first quarter, and thank you all for who've been tuning in live or watching the recordings for Shaw Planet. I hope this is providing value, hopefully having a little bit of fun. I don't have a wrap on for today, so a little bit of a disappointment, I guess. But and I'm also not wearing a cowboy hat. It's me and a rubber band. Um, but before I get into this, I just got to wish a very, very, very happy birthday to a person who's been a very important person in my life. Pinky's father, my father-in-law, Dad, wishing you a very, very happy birthday and wishing you the best always. I love you and thank you for everything that you do for us. So I'd be remiss if I didn't wish him, somebody very important in my life and a huge influence, a very, very happy birthday. So let's get into it. Do you guys remember these? Obviously you remember these are rubber bands. But do you remember doing one of these with them? These are one of those things which I think is kind of like not allowed anymore. But we can do this because we stretch. And why do we stretch? We stretch before we work out. We stretch before we sit in a long car ride. I want to talk about IRAs today. The IRS and the Department of Labor are probably one of the few government entities out there that can seek to provide clarity and also cause complexity. It's actually really hard to do it that way, but they are up to that challenge, man. They will find ways to provide clarity and complexity at the exact same time. So in 2019, there was this new law for IRAs called the Secure Act, and the Secure Act did a lot of things, but it pushed the required minimum distribution back. It forced people to start taking sort of like payouts within 10 years versus being able to stretch it out over their lifetime. So let's talk a little bit about these new regulations that came out in February that sought to provide clarity. And they did provide some clarity. These proposed regulations are just that, they're proposed regulations, but this stuff's pretty real. So it used to be the rule that somebody passes away with an IRA. Incidentally, I just got to take a quick tangent here. It blows my mind when I see somebody providing financial advice or investment advice, and underneath it says not tax advice. We can argue about the best investments to use. We can argue about getting a 6% rate of return versus a 12% rate of return. But when you shift one bracket to another and you save yourself 8 to 10% in taxes, that's like a rate of return. And that's fact. We don't have to get into opinion, right? That's actually a bankable savings. So, how do you provide investment advice? How do you provide financial advice without providing tax advice? But that's a topic for another day. All right, I'll get down off my soapbox. Here's the thing that you need to know about IRAs, and we'll talk about what you can do with them too. And I'm not going to be able to get into all of it because this is 10 minutes. You're just starting your day. This is just a quick snippet to know what you should know. Used to be that somebody passes away, and if a spouse inherits it, or any of the kids inherit it, or really just anybody but a limited amount of people inherit it, they'd be able to stretch taking money out over the IRA, out of the IRA, over the years, over their expected lifetime. And as long as they did that, they only had to pay the taxes on the income that they took out. That's what we call the stretch. Now, there's still some stretch available, but there's three categories of beneficiaries that are really hit by this, right? So if you are not what we call an eligible designated beneficiary, don't worry about that, it's a mouthful. But basically, if you're not a spouse, if you're not a minor children, minor children, you're not a minor children. If you're not a minor child until you reach age 18, if you're not a disabled or chronically ill person, or if you're not a non-spouse beneficiary who's less than 10 years younger, then basically what's happening is no more stretch. Effectively, whoever inherits that is pretty much going to have to take everything out within 10 years if you're lucky. That's the best scenario. The biggest mistake that some people do is they don't have beneficiaries or contingent beneficiaries, and they make things payable to the estate. Well, in that case, not even 10 years. You got 5 years. And that means a lot of taxes as well. What does all this mean? It means you've got to be very intentional. Now, these new regulations, they brought up some clarity. And they in fact said, a topic that's near and dear to me is, there are some new rules that gave greater latitude to design trusts. We've been doing this all along, but now there's a little more clarity on how the designated beneficiary, how that rule would work under IRAs too. So if you haven't already used a trust, if asset protection is important for the people who benefit, you want to know that. So What are we balancing here? We're balancing the investment vehicles, we're balancing the asset protection, we're balancing the tax impact of this. So IRAs, a lot of people can barely spell IRA. But if you have an IRA, if you have substantial funds in there, and you want to make sure that it gets to the right people with as minimal taxes and in an asset protected vehicle, you probably want to have a conversation about this. Now, this isn't specific legal advice. This isn't specific tax advice. This isn't specific financial advice. This definitely is not marital advice or even cooking advice. But all that being said, probably want to be mindful of what your intentions are with this IRA. And what does this also mean? Well, look, if you have a spouse and your spouse is going to inherit the IRA, yeah, they might be able to stretch this out over their lifetime. But are they going to get into a different tax bracket after they pass away? And what's that going to do for them? And what's that ultimately going to do for your legacy that you leave behind? So I know it's a lot of information and it's early, and you might still be downing that coffee and waiting for it to kick in or getting ready for work. But just know the rules for IRAs have changed significantly since 2019. We've got some clarity now, and you probably want to be mindful of what your long-term intentions are with these IRAs. And I'll just leave with this, right? The IRS made an active decision is, look, we can either tax you on a seed when you're planting something, or we can wait for it to turn into a crop and then tax you, right? So obviously when you tax the crop, it's going to be more because it's worth more. So with IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, any sort of entity where you haven't paid the tax already, generally speaking, you are probably looking at more taxes down the road. The reason why we do it, the reason we like it is we pay less taxes today and we get compound growth on the stuff that we didn't pay taxes on. That's a good thing, but you want to strike a balance. You want to know, and you want to start doing it earlier, because if you're going to pay taxes anyway, might as well choose the tax bracket you're going to pay and not have it chosen for you. So that being said, super excited. It's April 5th. We have our client event coming up this Saturday. There will be food truck. There will be shredding truck. There will be good times by all. Please let there be good weather. But if not, we're on rain or shine. I am looking forward to seeing our clients, our friends, the people who have trusted us with their life savings and their legacies. So I'm looking forward to seeing those of you who are going to be making it out there. Everybody else, if you've got any questions, if you've got any concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us on this topic or anything else. And finally, if you have any other suggestions for topics, stretch or not stretch, wrap or not wrap, I do take requests. So let us know if you got anything you want us to speak about specifically. Have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic spring. And I am looking forward to seeing everybody next week. All right, everybody, take care, be well, do both.